So welcome to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time today, Wednesday, to spend it with us in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. I am your host for today, Elio. I am a director of customer success at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. I am also a Marine Corps veteran. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-hosts to take part in our conversation so that we can leverage their experience, expertise, and unique perspectives. The focus for tonight's session is exploring the Diversity and Inclusion Program and the candidate experience career path, which is pretty awesome. I like to officially welcome Bryce Lofton. Bryce has been with us here at Salesforce for just over a year, and he is a diversity and inclusion program manager. He's focusing on the candidate experience. So prior to him coming to Salesforce, he held inclusion and diversity, recruiting, public relations, and marketing positions at Bloomberg, LP, Lyft, NBC Universal, BET Networks, and Texas Southern University. It is great to have you here co-hosting today, Bryce, and I'll pause there to give you an opportunity to say hello to the group. Kind of introduce yourself, if you will.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for having me. Yes, I'm Bryce, and everything he did say was true. No, I did attend Texas Southern University. I have a background in public relations, but definitely made a transition over to human resources and recruiting and mentorship, as I found that was my major passion point. And so at Salesforce, I get the opportunity to manage internal programs that really bolster the candidate experience and creates just unique opportunities for interview candidates to connect with Salesforce employees in ways that you don't typically get in your day-to-day interview processes. And so it aligns directly with the work that I've done previously. And so I'm excited to do just that.
Awesome. And again, thank you for volunteering and helping us today. As you can see, our audience is quite big and vast and will continue to grow as we continue today's session. So for those of you that are joining here for the first time, please keep in mind these sessions are an informal get-together, right? This is for gathering of military trailblazers and our allies. We try to explore non-technical Salesforce career and personal branding related topics to help us achieve our professional development and career related goals. Everyone on the call is encouraged to step up, ask questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions, you can post them on the chat, and I'll try to keep up on the little chat window to see if I see your question and call them back. We ask everybody to, to share your perspective on any of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I think that will give us a better experience to hear from different aspects and different experience backgrounds. So with that said, I'm going to jump over to Bryce. Could you explain to us what is the Diversity and Inclusion Program Manager, and what are your responsibilities entails?
Yes. So it really entails having a deep knowledge of diversity and inclusion and what that means. For a lot of companies, it's DEI, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, understanding the basic fundamentals of creating opportunities for underrepresented minorities, underrepresented groups, and really finding opportunities and ways to, in an innovative aspect, to create programs that amplify the voices of these folks in these marginalized communities and really giving them opportunities to not just join the company, but really gain a skill set that they may be lacking. So in my experience prior to Salesforce, I've always found roles or found opportunities to build these programs, whether it be for graduates of Black universities like myself and such. So in this role, I actually manage a global internal program for interview candidates. And what it does is it really amplifies the voice of members of the LGBTQ plus community, single parents, folks that are going through, incredibly tough situations. And so they're able to actually select a Salesforce employee to connect with that has the same identity. So if this person has listed that they're also a member of said community, if they're a veteran, if they are a single parent, if they're into travel, All of these things are kind of listed on their profiles that candidate will select and be able to have a conversation with. And so it's just about finding those ways, understanding D&I fundamentals and applying those fundamentals to recruiting processes and programs to really make a change on how we're impacting these communities from a recruiting perspective.
Fantastic. And as you know, we had prepared some questions, but we'll take questions from the audience. And could you walk us through, just interested to know, what does the day in the life look like in this type of role?
Yeah, in this role specifically, there are two buckets. There's a huge programmatic side of how do I further arm our partners with tools to advocate for candidates to take part in this program. How do we partner with folks that are sourcing and sourcing for talent from these communities and really giving them an opportunity? How do I bring those folks that are employees together more often and share those wins with them of, hey, you've impacted our hire numbers, or you've impacted our conversion numbers, or you've really made a difference with these folks that have said, hey, I am a member of this community. I just want to speak to someone that looks like me. I want to speak to a Black executive at Salesforce and know what their journey is like. So being able to create those connecting points on a programmatic scale. And then there's also a huge technical piece to this. So the program is actually built into an app on the Salesforce platform. And so there's a huge part of working with our engineers and developers to ensure that the app experience is what it should be for candidates and our insiders. And so there's a huge part of troubleshooting issues that arise, thinking of new features that'll make the experience better and more streamlined for everyone. But then there's also this huge piece of always keeping the crux of the program and the people top of mind, and understanding that we have to continue to advocate. We have to continue to give our partners tools to advocate as well. So no 2 days are alike. There are some days where there's one focus that is a bit more than the other. But I always try to keep it equal. And one great thing is we're actually getting some support on the team. So that I have someone that can do that work of, really advocating for our equality groups and partnering with the equality groups that are connected to the great work that's being done, like VetForce and WinForce and LatinoForce and so forth. So a lot of great work being done, but no 2 days are alike. I'll definitely say that.
Awesome. What would you say would be like the best part of this role for you?
So, okay. I love hearing that a candidate was hired through this program. And, one thing that we always tout, and we actually just pulled recent stats, but we saw that 100% of candidates that opted into the specific program I manage and got to offer stage accepted their offers. And so we're seeing that impact and seeing the impact of candidates being able to say, hey, I want to speak with someone that looks like me, that has a similar career trajectory, that's interested in what I'm interested in. It's been impactful beyond what we could express. And so I always love seeing that candidates are actually being impacted in that way. And I always like feeling like I'm positioning myself as sort of a mentor to folks that are interested in the company and interested about roles. And so we'll actually be giving access to this program to internship level candidates. And so that's always been my main interest in every role before this, was internship and recruiting for interns and helping college students. And so it'll be great to bring some of that passion point into the program as well.
Awesome. What would you say is a career progression of this type of PM role?
So my progression actually started, I jumped a level. Most folks will start, from a recruiting perspective, you'll start as like a recruiting coordinator, and you'll help schedule the interview meetings, and you'll support getting meetings scheduled and event logistics, and kind of just helping out with things that folks don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do. But then you'll eventually be moved up into a recruiter role where you're actually managing a pipeline. A lot of companies have recruiters that manage recruiting for specific groups. Like if I'm only recruiting for military personnel or veterans, or only recruiting for students from historically Black colleges or Hispanic serving institutions, there's some of that specificity across many companies. So you'll get to wear one of those hats and really build relationships with students aligned with those priorities. From there, you move into a project or program manager role, which is what I was interested in. I realized that I didn't so much like owning a talent pipeline versus creating and managing programs that actually impacted their experience through their interview. I don't want to just take you through the interview. I actually want to build tools that give you the resources to make it through, so that it's not a numbers game, but more of really an impact situation. And so it's really those 4 roles. I got to skip the recruiting coordinator role through like some work that I was doing in previous roles that was related, but you usually kind of jump at it from that level. So I think the next level for me would be like a senior program manager at some point, hopefully some point soon.
Fantastic. I'm gonna take a look. I'm gonna pause for a sec, see if anybody else has any questions. While you think about questions, group, or if you want to put them on text, I've benefited from this type of program, and some of the folks that in our military community that has reached out actually has benefited, probably unbeknownst to most. Whenever I refer to somebody, part of what I think you're talking about here, Bryce, is we get to identify some of the folks that are, go through some of our programs as military vets, and or other underrepresented minorities, which I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But enough about me. Let's continue. I didn't see. Let me double check to make sure I didn't miss anybody. I want to just give people an opportunity to ask questions.
Elio, for Bryce. Yeah. So Bryce, I just always say whenever we have someone with an HR background on, it makes my heart so happy, because that's like my background before I jumped into Salesforce. So it always just makes me smile because I love HR people. So when you talk about the program, if we have people that are reaching out to us or people that we think may be a good fit, do you mean a program like where we can point them in a specific direction? Or is it something that once they apply, like Elio was talking about, where somebody asks for a referral, or you do a referral for someone at Salesforce, where we select one of those diversity and inclusion groups? Like how do we let people know about this program who could benefit from it?
Got you. Yeah. So for this program specifically, it's called our Insiders program, and it's internal, completely internal for interview candidates. And essentially the way it's been built is it's connected directly to our applicant tracking system. And so it's all integrated. And as soon as a recruiter moves this candidate into a certain round, it's automatically triggering an invitation to candidate to partake in the program. We don't discriminate. Every candidate right now that is full-time and a mere base gets access to this program once they're moved into that stage. And what they'll do is they'll log into this fancy platform. They'll see the insiders or volunteers that are available, and they'll see everything that they're interested in. So if you're an employee and you're interested in travel, if you're a member of certain equality groups, if you're a veteran, your bio, all of this will be posted onto your profile, and the candidate will select you based off of their interests. So it just creates that specificity that is very unique to us in the way that we built it and the way that we've been able to be impactful through it. So we call it our secret sauce. You won't see it externally anywhere, but it's something that we have seen to be truly impactful, along with our referrals program and our Representation Matters referrals, where all of our referrals who do decide to self-identify are mandated a recruiter screen. So the company is definitely doing its part to ensure that these candidates are getting time with recruiters and getting the resources necessary to really gain that insight that you don't typically get in an interview process or just engaging with the company. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no,
I
was thinking to myself, is it an external program that we can tell people find out? You can find out more about it here, but it sounds like it's more internal once they've actually applied. It's kind of working behind the scenes for people. So very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's evolving. I mean, we even had a meeting today speaking with our sourcing, leadership, and how do we give candidates from a sourcing perspective access to this program, even though they're not necessarily a candidate. So there are definitely thoughts around expanding the reach and scope of this program beyond just global and beyond just an internship level. And so it's definitely something that is top of mind for us as we kind of grow, small but steady, but make sure that we're keeping up with the demand.
Awesome. Doing great work, Bryce. I think everyone on here will agree that it's definitely making an impact. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for the program internally and how, um, I've been connected to mentorship opportunities where I'd never had that in my career, and I've been in tech for 25 years. So yeah, it's incredible. I have one other question
Sure.
with regards to, for the military, right? For all of us, um we tried not to focus too much on identifying different groups. It's usually, especially when I was in the Marine Corps, it was, hey, we're all green Marine. um how do we make sure we maintain inclusiveness for our veterans, for example, for the folks that are participating, so they're aware of some of these activities that happen at Salesforce from your perspective, Bryce?
Yeah, I think that we cannot ever look at things in a siloed fashion, and we can never be afraid to want to kind of take on the world in that sense. I think that there are always shifting priorities, and as the world kind of evolves, we have to kind of be nimble. And so, as I mentioned before, at most companies, and I believe we do this at Salesforce, there are recruiters and recruiting groups that are dedicated to not only underrepresented minorities, but underrepresented groups, and ensuring that our candidates that self-ID as as a disability, or again as military personnel, are really given that white glove treatment. And so I think that it's just important that we don't put our blinders on to other groups. And I said, because I'm a graduate of an historically Black college or university, I've always been incredibly passionate about assisting students from these universities. But this role has definitely opened my eyes to really how so many of our folks are underrepresented in a multitude of ways. And we can really benefit these groups through really pulling resources together and really building programs that impact not just certain people, but certain groups at large. And so that's the great part of working on a global program, is being able to really see that impact at multiple levels and not shutting the door out on anyone. So it's something that we're excited to do. I know every company does not have the resources to do it in that way, but it's what made me want to join Salesforce, is that they do put the resources behind programs in the fashion so that we are really impacting folks on a larger scale than most would. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, the program that you're in. My questions, I guess I have another follow-up, because I've had an opportunity to meet with some of our attendees today who are in that space. And more so from your perspective, Bryce, on how somebody can look at your role as their target in the field. Maybe they have the passion, and maybe they come from an HR background, or maybe a program management background. As you mentioned, you have had a diverse background in your career path.
Yes.
What would be a good, like, best practice that you might want to consider highlighting here for folks to know that might be considering for a team like yours?
Yeah, I would always say find the gap. Um, I thought I was passionate about public relations and working red carpets and working for networks and such, but then I realized my favorite part of each of my previous roles was hiring the interns or working with the interns and building resources for the interns. So then what I did was I started building out processes for these folks in kind of an unofficial way. My role might have been communications or PR focused, but I also led the internship program because I saw a gap there, and I saw a need for more formality in the work that we were doing and more connection to the folks that were actually doing some of the work at a broader scale within the company. And so I would say find the gap and don't be afraid to assert or ask for, how can I help you with this kind of project? How can I help you with the interns while I'm also doing my regular 9 to 5? And so what happened was my boss even realized, he was like, well, you're more passionate around building process for our interns than you actually are around drafting press releases for us. So let's find you a role that actually aligns with your passion point. And so it's not always easy making that switch. And it did take me a while for the first company to actually want to hire me, because I didn't have that straight up recruiting experience. But I think when people hear your passion and they see that you found a way to influence that into the work that you're doing, they're willing to take a chance on you. And so that's kind of how it worked for me. So definitely.
Fantastic. I see a couple of hands. So I'm just going to call out some folks if that's okay with you, Bryce. Iris, I believe your hand was up, and then we'll follow up with the other folks.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, Elio, for being here while David could not, for all us diehard trail office hours. So thank you so much. And Bryce, thank you so much for being here and leading this such a vital conversation. And it's such an important conversation for all of us, because I consider myself a minority, you know, being a Black woman. But our company recently held a diversity and inclusion test, and I failed it because I was like, oh, I know this, I know that, and it's just common sense, it's just this. But it's not. It's about being intentional and taking a pause to look at a situation and learn about another person's situation. And it's not just common sense, it is about being intentional. So thank you so much for having this conversation. My question is, I do have a question after all this waffle. I do apologize.
It's all good.
Salesforce is that mothership. And a lot of us here are just starting out. A lot of the applicants I meet are just starting out on their journey. Where do they look for programs like this, or in a company where they want to see this kind of initiative but don't know how to get it started, or how to start up this kind of conversation and make their workplace more diversity and inclusive?
Yeah, it's I will say one thing I do like about Salesforce is that they're very forthcoming about the numbers and how the company is performing, and how did we, we had a V2 mom, and our V2 mom had these kind of specific call outs. How do we perform when we look at last year's V2 mom and such? So I do like the transparency. I do feel that the company is doing a lot of amazing work in a lot of different places. And so I've been 100% remote since I started at the company. So I even struggle with finding a hub of resources, or a hub where you have all of your resources aligned for folks that are really looking for connection points or programs to impact their experience. Like, I know we have Warmline, which is, as an individual, you can go to this company, or to this program rather, and actually have a conversation around maybe a difficult situation you're having with your boss, or you feel like you're being treated a certain way. So there are these resources, but I don't believe that they're all displayed in the way that they should be displayed. And a lot of them are super internal and super, but I think that it starts with really connecting with the folks at the ground level that are connected to these programs, our quality talent partners, our recruiters, folks that are working in Warmline, folks that are working like myself and insiders. We all work in hand with each other and in tandem with one another. And I do think that there's absolutely an opportunity to create more of a hub for those programs that impact the candidate experience and really are a tool for our recruiters. And so it's something that I'm definitely going to take back to my peers. But it's really, I can't tell you that there's like a one-stop shop or one way to really find out about the programs, other than just kind of having these conversations and really looking at, okay, who from the company seems interesting? Who from the company seems to be doing work that I'm interested in? And will they be down to just have a 30-minute conversation or a 15-minute conversation to really dig into what the journey looks like and what are the other resources that they're aware of? So it does take a little bit of work, but there's definitely a lot of amazing things happening at the company. But we do need a hub. We do need that. So I'll definitely take that as an action item post-conversation to find a way to really put all of these things in one place so that folks really can see the resources eye to eye.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Bryce, I'm going to call on Steve. I see he has his hand raised. Steve, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm absolutely fascinated by this topic. I've been around in business world for quite a while, and for so many years, I think we all had the attitude that, hey, it's not up to the company to pay attention to these kind of things. It's, we treat everybody the same. And so there's no need for any of this stuff. And we're getting past that. We're making some strides, though. And definitely, I fall into that category of middle-aged white guy who is not always the most knowledgeable about, because I haven't been exposed to a lot of the challenges that people in other groups have come into. Although as I'm getting older, I am discovering that I've become unwittingly part of the seniors that where there is some definite discrimination there as well. But all this to say, when you were even talking at the beginning about single parents, and of course I know that once somebody is working, that single parents have some unique challenges. But it never occurred to me that it would be of value to talk to somebody during the interview process who was in that category. So that intrigued me. But it also occurs to me that this kind of thing evolves over time.
Right.
And how do you find, and be honest, 10 years ago, the LGBTQ community really wasn't that organized, and really, or at least from my perspective, wasn't that organized. And so that really wouldn't have put any emphasis there. How do you recognize those patterns as they come up, and how do you compensate for those?
Yeah, I think for us, when it comes specifically to this program, it's really staying in the weeds with our equality groups and understanding the work that they're doing, the mission of the groups, understanding really current events. And, at different moments, different communities are impacted at different levels. I mean, we've seen police brutality with certain groups. We've seen how certain members of communities are being, treated in our current state. And it doesn't mean the other issue goes away, but it means that we need to expand the lens and share the wealth on how we really protect these communities. And I think when you really look at the work for Salesforce specifically, the work that our equality groups are doing in the spaces that they're providing to really know what's going on, have hard conversations, and build relationships, and really feel like an ally, a strong ally in these rooms, is I think what keeps us abreast of the issues and keeps us open to really understanding the additional set of groups of folks that really need that recognition and really need that welcome and really need that opportunity to feel like they can connect with someone that is in a similar situation as them. And so I think there has to be a nimble mentality connected to it. And then also really doing the work and not working heads down, but really working in tandem and hand in hand with those that are at the front line and asking those questions and joining the groups. I mean, I told myself, well, I need to go to meetings that are really highlighting the events going on in the Ukraine and how these communities are being impacted by the things that are going on a day-to-day. And so I think there's a responsibility for all of us to not feel that we have to be so much educated, but that we educate ourselves, and utilize the resources and the folks that are really there to help us out to learn more, so that it impacts the programs that we're building, and that knowledge is baked into the steps that we're taking in the work that we're doing. So there's no one clean shot to this, but I think there's definitely an inclusive partnership kind of mindset that we use when we build out our program to make sure that we're not leaving anyone out, and that if somebody says, hey, we need to put more emphasis on our candidates that are identifying as disabled, or they want to speak with someone that identifies the same, okay, let's make sure that our app is nimble enough to where we can add that as a filter and an option for our candidates when they go into the app. And so that's something that we've really baked into our processes, and we're excited to keep evolving as things evolve quite naturally.
Yes. Hi, Elio. Thank you again for hosting today. Bryce, I'm so excited when I saw that you were going to be the guest today. I had to jump on. HR is my favorite facet of the workplace, so I was excited to see that. So I kind of have a two-part question. So I'm just kind of curious, I love how data and metrics drive the HR processes. So I'm just curious, are you guys continuously reviewing and seeing what kind of success you have? What kind of data are you looking at? And then also, have you found it hard to get stakeholders and just internal investors on board? I mean, this might not be a question that you can answer, but at the end of the day, we just need to be honest and transparent. So I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, definitely. So we we look at data every quarter. We actually report to leadership every quarter. What we do is we look at, okay, how are, like I mentioned, our 100% conversion rate, but how do we also look at, from a program specific perspective, are candidates going into this app? Are they logging in and setting up a meeting? Are they actually seeing the benefit of utilizing this app? And so we really look at things from multiple standpoints. When we look at conversions, how do we look at that from an underrepresented minorities and groups perspective? And then how do we really look at that from with a total eyesight of all candidates involved? So we try to put multiple lenses on some of our conversions. I will say that in this role specifically, I have not felt that was the crux for the budget that we were approved for the program, or we had to defend the program from that perspective in order to keep the ball rolling or keep this excitement around the program at all. I think that there's definitely an awareness and excitement about this program from the leadership on down. We had La Lima, which is a huge event for us, where our CEO spoke about the greatness of this program. And so there's definitely this general feeling and vibe about it, but I have yet to feel the pressure of, well, you have to have 1,000 hires through this program, or we're not giving you budget for the next year, or we're going to kind of deprioritize, what we funded for the next year. I have yet to feel that. And I know in some instances, and this is probably super internal, but this is a program that is up in the millions. And so it's something that there's definitely dedicated resources behind from a financial and technological perspective, and from a leadership perspective. And it makes me excited. I mean, in previous roles, I won't say the company, but I have held roles where the company did hire me to hire a certain group of, candidates from underrepresented minority group. And so they brought me in and they were excited about the work that I would be doing. But when I pitched all of these ideas and asked for certain resources, I was shot down. And it was clear that the company was not ready for the work that they hired me to do. They weren't truly ready to make that shift. And so what's exciting here is that the company is more than ready, and they put all kinds of resources behind programs like these. My program is one of many that is impacting the candidate experience. And so it's exciting to have that general awareness and that general excitement around the work that's being done, even though we know that it can be incremental, and incremental is okay. We don't have to change the world tomorrow. And so it's exciting to see that and know that in my day-to-day.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think it just goes to show that it is successful, because like you said, 100% of people who did the program accepted an offer. And it's refreshing just to hear that from the top down, this is a priority, because you hear so many leaders say it as a priority, but it's, show me how the priority. So that's awesome. And I'm excited for you guys, and what an amazing way to make candidates just feel seen and heard, and that they're important and they matter. So keep up the awesome work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a question, Bryce. I just had a quick follow-up to Steve, because I think he brought something that, sometimes we don't think we belong in one of these groups. And, you hit one on Steve, where I just turned 52 this year. And guess what? I am now part of a group that traditionally you don't see a lot around in tech. And that's the truth. So if you think this is a discussion of diversity for a group that you don't think you apply for, at some point, all of us, no matter the color of the skin, male or female, will have some kind of impact of that diversity. And I think the more we've just become aware of it and educate ourselves, I think the better we'll be in fighting and working through some of these challenges that traditionally people think are maybe for that group. I don't identify with that. I'm sure, Steve, at kind of like what I mentioned, right? I never thought I would be at this age and still in tech. Here I am, and it's up in front of me. So thank you very much for that question that you brought up. I think it's just great for us to have an opportunity to talk to somebody like Bryce, who is is literally in the front line fighting for us, And Bryce, I guess I do have a question, right? How can we as veterans and military spouses leverage our skill set, you know, and try to look for roles like this, what you do today, because I think your role in this type of program, I've seen it in the 9 years I've been at Salesforce really grow, and I think it's just going to continue to, you know, expand, and I would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned it somewhere earlier, but I think it's about really leveraging your existing skill set and how you find your niche and
Right.
find your
Okay.
way to really kind of infiltrate spaces. I think that we also forget that allyship is crucial and just truly critical to, you know, accomplishing the mission and opening doors and really making space for other groups and other folks. And so I think it's important to acknowledge your existing skill set, find ways to, you know, what are you interested in? How can you take part in programs that help you to actually sharpen the tools that you already have, and then find your niche in whatever field that you're interested in. Find your passion point. I think for me, I made a list, and that list has kind of helped me narrow down what I was passionate about. Then I thought, well, what do I like doing every day that's a part of my existing role, and how can I turn that actually into my role? These relationships that are going to help me get there, even if it isn't a shortcutted way, which did kind of help me out, was just kind of knowing some folks that were part of those lines of business and such. And so I think it's multi-pronged, but I think when you really identify your skill set, you infiltrate these rooms and become an ally in these rooms, and you really understand what your passion point is, it'll all work together when the time is right to get to that role that you're really interested in. I think it's all about relationship building. When I was laid off due to COVID a couple of years ago, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I had only had one real job in tech. And so I think for me, it was important to really just reach out and say, okay, who's working in the role that I would want at the company that I would maybe work for, and would they respond to my message on LinkedIn if I just reached out and sent them a informational request or just introduced myself. And so 9 times out of 10, folks are busy and they might not get to you, but it may be that one time that someone has the capacity to say, well, let me connect you to this person or that person, or let me connect you to this program that is giving scholarships or really is a pathway into the role and into the company that you're looking to get into. Because everybody knows everybody. So there's always that opportunity, but it's about being open and being able to really network. That's really going to take it to. Right.
And I see, Kayla, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I was kind of like trying to figure out how to word my question. Just going to put it out there. I will say, like, I'm very grateful to work for a company that has in place many wonderful like groups for different diversity and inclusion, many facets. And at the heart of what I really want to ask you is, like, what would you say to someone or a group of people who maybe their diversity or the thing that they represent isn't on the surface? Like, it's not, you can't just look at them and know what it is. And but they want to, like, join a group and it's so awesome that those groups are there, but maybe they might feel stigmatized or maybe afraid to be so open and vulnerable about that. So I wonder if, like, you come into the in kind of like this type of situation in your work, and like what you would say to people in that position.
Yeah. So I would definitely say, I would, if I would start my own equality group. I mean, if I'm working at a company and I see a gap and I see that there's a need to highlight this group that has maybe never been prioritized or does not have a safe space, and I think there's an opportunity there, my first train of thought is, who do I reach out to get the paperwork going to build my own equality group and to build that space, so that not only folks that align with what I align with are there, but we have our allies in the room, and we can create this awareness around what I find to be important and passionate about. And then also understanding, okay, what are the current and existing programs that are impacting multiple groups and maybe just need to have that conversation around this other group that maybe just does not feel the love right now. How can we amplify the voice of folks from this group in existing programs and in existing ways? Once we've identified that, okay, there's a ton going on here, and we can just be added to the love that's happening in the room at this moment. And so I think there's those two approaches that I think will really make a difference. And it's not going to be quick. None of this changes overnight, but I think just having the conversation and really opening up the conversation is what's really going to help bring about that change in an incremental way. But I would definitely take the first two approaches to at least get in the ball rolling there. Absolutely.
Yeah, great question, Kayla. And to add to the chat, as a remote employee of Salesforce, I found myself lost at times, and I actually joined a women's leadership network group at Salesforce as an ally. And I attended a couple of calls, and I'm like, wow, I can relate to everybody on this call. I was not part of the group, but as an ally, I learned so much about some of these challenges faced in tech, right? And I could apply to them, and I could relate to them. And before I knew it, that's how I learned about the other groups that I got involved. So you might not, like, to your point, Kayla, you're not my seat in the surface, but there might be other ways that you can parallel with other groups to understand how to stand up that unique group there. I never knew about caste in the Indian culture until I joined some of the groups. And it's interesting, like I mentioned earlier with Steve, there are so many uniqueness from everybody. You can really, the more you become aware, the more I think you become a strong ally, and people they'll build on that to help you build a group that you might think it's a good idea to have. So it's an interesting concept, and I've seen it work in action. So I'm just talking from my experience, but I thought I'd share with the group.
That's great. Yeah, one of the folks that actually helped build this program that I manage actually started Outforce at Salesforce, and so that just kind of shows you the connectivity of the work that our equality groups are doing and its connection to these internal programs, and being able to really see that impact, because there is that intentionality from who's building the program, who's building the group, and then how it's really serving at multiple levels. And so that's one thing, when I spoke with them during my interview process, it amazed me that there was an opportunity not only to really start a huge equality group, but really be able to lend that into the experience of candidates that may also identify and really need someone to speak with through this program that identifies the way that they do. And so it's that connection and that journey that makes the work rewarding, and it makes the day-to-day a little bit easier to bear. Just a little.
Speaking of, Bryce, could you share some of the challenges of your role? Maybe that's something, I don't know if I've asked that before. Or anybody has.
I think one of the big challenges, and we probably all experience this, is just feeling like you don't have enough hours in the day. Or you might want additional support on the team, as we build out the infrastructure for what our teams look like. There is just, I've heard since I've joined Salesforce a million times, everybody's trying to boil the ocean. And I've had to really step away from that, because I am the type that wants to just take on the world and do everything. And so it's just a lot of work to be done, but knowing and understanding that it does not happen overnight. It's okay. That doesn't mean you're not killing it or crushing it in other ways. And so just understanding that it's okay. It's okay. Things will get done, and having the mindset that the small wins and the small changes is really, really what's going to lead to the bigger wins down the line. So, yeah.
Can I interject for someone real quick? Because I think the comment also plays to Kayla's comment about if you feel like you represent somebody that isn't a group of people that might exist, but you're not really sure that you're necessarily brave enough, I guess, to stand up and say, I think that bravery sometimes doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes bravery happens by sticking your toe in the water and saying, okay, well, that didn't kill me, so maybe I'll stick half my foot in the water.
The ankle, right?
And you keep going back for it. And the great thing is that you've learned something each time. And so, and each time it didn't kill you. And so you get braver as time goes on. And I think that applies just about anything, because when you try to make sweeping changes, you can get slapped down pretty hard. But if you try and go for the smaller incremental changes, there's learning every time, and you just get better at it over time. So.
Yeah, great comment, Steve.
Yeah.
Lindsay had a comment in the chat. She wanted to know, is your team growing, Bryce? Are you guys hiring, or do you have any plans in the future? Lindsay is an employee at Salesforce, so I think that's what I think. Like Geraldine, I think she's very passionate about, you know, the impact that your team has.
Yeah. So we are definitely going to be hiring very soon. If you are interested in a D&I kind of role that has that specificity on internal programs, you can feel free to reach out to me. We can set up conversations, or I can just give you more info. But yeah, there will definitely be some exciting opportunities as we grow. I mean, we have plans to scale our program globally this year. We have plans, as I mentioned, to give Futureforce or our internship level candidates access, our source candidates access, our internal candidates access, all within the next year. So there's very, very ambitious plans underway. So we recognize that we'll need at least one extra set of hands to help us get that accomplished. So you can definitely feel free to reach out if you're interested.
Awesome, Bryce. Do you mind? I know this is not really a topic that we cover here, but could you give the audience just a quick synopsis of what Futureforce is at Salesforce?
Yeah, so Futureforce is our program for internship level hiring. And so they go to campuses, they host events, and they want to attract talent from universities all across the country. And so they have, within Futureforce, we have our internship level, then we have our conversions, and these are folks that did an internship and are getting that conversion offer, so that as soon as they graduate, they're able to say they have that job lined up at Salesforce. And then we have our new hires. So these are folks that are less than 1 year out of college, but are still considered a Futureforce hire because they're very early in their careers. And so they hire very aggressively along those three levels. And so we want to make sure that we're giving these young candidates access to a program like this, not only to see the work that the company is doing, but to really get that insight, you know, into what it's like to be a veteran and a Salesforce executive, you know, a Black executive, a person that is a member of WinForce, and the work that the company is doing to amplify voices of, you know, members of said equality group. And so I think that's important, especially from that candidate pool, because they have all kinds of offers and they're very, very smart, and they're, you know, trying to work at all the cool tech companies. So a lot of robust plans underway.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I'm going to go back to Iris. I see her hands up.
First of all, you need to let me know when that's starting up. I've got a couple of tech boys who will be heading off to college soon. So you just let me know where you'll be and I'll make sure they're there.
Will do.
I also actually wanted to say that as well as it taking a little bit of bravery, it also does take a little bit of understanding of the other side of the coin. Do you know what I mean? Like talking about diversity, inclusion, and minorities, and the change that other people have to go through after being brought up a certain way and having to educate them to the new world that we now live in. And again, drawing from my own experience, many moons ago, I traveled the world and I lived in Vietnam. And when my first day there, I remember the racism I faced and people falling off their bikes, laughing at me and like calling me foul names kind of thing. And it was distressing, but you know, I was a Black woman traveling alone and I knew I'd face these kind of things. I stayed in Nha Trang and I was actually offered a job and I was marketing and stuff like that. And because I knew that I could change people's perceptions just by the way I behaved. By the time I left, like 5 months later, I had people who were like some of the my colleagues were bringing me their brother, saying, "You should meet my brother. He would make a good husband for you," and things like that. But it just shows you that sometimes you have to be the bigger person, and you have to realize that, okay, this is in education. This is people being silly, and I have a job to do. I'm going to be an ambassador, kind of thing.
So folks, there's a couple of trails. If you go to Trailhead about inclusive hiring, marketing to different groups, being aware of the diversity and inclusion philosophy and action steps to take action. And I remember reading one about how organizations that have these programs actually have a greater set of success in a lot of their business, as well as internal growth of people, staying at companies, taking more challenges because they have a sense of belonging, right? And that's very important, I think, in tech.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome thing. I don't have insight into that level of stat. I wish I did, but I can say I've seen the work. I mean, one of the huge things that our company has done in the last year that I've been here is just an interviewer enablement program, which requires all interviewers to be certified, to take away any of the old processes of debriefing before submitting feedback or bias in an interview setting, and really looking at how we look at competency-based interviewing versus, oh, this candidate went to a prestigious university, so they're automatically going to get through, versus someone that went to a university I've never heard of, you know, being pushed to the side. So I love seeing programs like this, and led by our D&I teams and our enablement teams, actually become required. And it's required that we have to be interview certified before we get in front of any candidate. And so to be able to see some of these sweeping changes happen at such a large company is inspiring. And I know it's a huge company, and you'll still have your pockets where there's still work to be done, and there's still some evolving that needs to happen. But it's great to see the company put those parameters in place to really knock it down from stage one of when a candidate experiences a Salesforce employee. And so it's just great to see some of that happen on a daily basis, even though I'm not really a part of all of it. Just seeing some of the impact is great.
Yeah, definitely. I'll leave everybody with this note. I know we're out of time here. As part of my career path to become a leader at Salesforce, I was mentored to participate in panels for people who are hiring for roles, and I went through exactly what Bryce is talking about. The training to interview, it's tough, and it really removes a lot of like what he mentioned about the traditional items that we don't think about, right? We don't focus on what school somebody came from. We focus on capabilities, potential. We focus on things that are, we try to remove a lot of the biases. And having had that experience, I could tell you, it's amazing. I feel like, you know, I got a cape because they let me go through this training, and I really know how to interview people without my own biases put into the interview process. I've never experienced that, and I've been in the field for 25 years, and it's just awesome. And Bryce, I know we're a minute over. I just want to say thank you for your time today. So I appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge with us, sharing your time. I thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to co-host, and Bryce and everyone. Have a good afternoon. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Feel free to connect with me. Looking forward to keeping the conversation going, but thanks again.